Welcome back. Let's talk about France and Italy and grapes and tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead and solve for absolute and comparative advantage. And in this case, France's opportunity cost is 4-1, and Italy's opportunity cost is 2-1. So in terms of comparative advantage, we look for who has the lowest opportunity cost. France, Italy, or neither nation have comparative advantage in producing grapes. Well, it would be France. And the answer is, here I would say France, because France has 1 bushel of grapes, which costs 1/4 bushel of tomatoes, where Italy is 1 grape to 1/2 bushel of tomatoes. Italy has a higher opportunity cost to produce tomatoes and should produce tomatoes, while France would give up too much to produce tomatoes. That's the answer. There are other ways to write it. You could use it with the numbers flipped around, whatever works there for you. So, scrolling down here, assume France and Italy decide to specialize in trade according to their comparative advantages, and 20 grapes are exchanged for 8 tomatoes. So, if we have 20 grapes for 8 tomatoes, then what's going to happen here is I want to take this ratio of 4-1 and translate it over here. So I'm going to multiply these by 5, and that would give me 20 grapes for 5 tomatoes for France would be a good deal. And I'm going to multiply this Italian ratio by 10. That'd be 20 grapes for 10 tomatoes here. 20 grapes should trade for somewhere between 5 and 8 tomatoes. 10 tomatoes is not within this ratio. France comes out fine. They get more than what they're willing to ask for. But Italy, if they made 10 tomatoes, they would want at least 40 grapes. So this is just not going to be effective for Italy. So it's a great trade for France. They get more tomatoes than they can make on their own, but Italy ends up giving up too many tomatoes for the equivalent amount of grapes. They could just make grapes themselves at a cost of 5 tomatoes. Why would they pay 10 tomatoes for it? So my answer here would be that it benefits France. They get more than the 8 tomato opportunity cost. It does not benefit Italy. They could make 20 grapes and only give up 5 tomatoes. So that's how I would explain it. And that is pretty elegant and pretty quick. I'm kind of proud of that. I know sometimes off the top of your head, that is not as easy. Also, another way to make this better, instead of saying give up, they can make 20 grapes and their opportunity cost is 5 tomatoes. So 10 tomatoes is too high a price. Remember, this did have an explain. All right, let's clear this out. Suppose the productivity of labor in the production of grapes and tomatoes in France doubles. So if that happens, what's going to happen to our ratio here is we're going to go from 100 to 25 to 200 to 25 to 50. What would happen on their PPC? Their PPC would shift outward. Again, this was one where to ask you to draw a PPC, but then the next question was, what would happen to their absolute comparative advantages? Well, its absolute advantages would not change. It already had an absolute advantage in producing grapes. It still has that advantage. It's equal here with tomato. If you're equal, you can't have an advantage. And then it asks what would happen to their comparative advantage. Well, their ratios here are still the same. So the ratio of grapes to tomatoes is still 1-4, or 4-1 rather. And Italy's ratio is still 2-1. So comparative advantage does not change because the opportunity cost is still 4-1 for France. Italy is still 2-1. So that's how you answer that question.